How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JG Domination, and today we're going to be doing my predictions for the NFC and AFC divisional round of the NFL playoffs. I could have just said the NFL divisional round for the playoffs, but whatever. We got four matchups, of course, and we're going to be breaking them all down right now. We're going to be starting in chronological order in which the matchups will happen, so I'll save my Green Bay Packers for last. I'm going to be honest, a little nervous about that one. I always am when it comes to playing Russell Wilson, but let's go ahead and get started with the 6-seeded Minnesota Vikings, who got the upset over the New Orleans Saints in a lot of people's eyes, going up against the 1-seed San Francisco 49ers. Now, this matchup, I think, is a lot closer than the average fan would think. You got two quarterbacks that are kind of in the same tier, I guess you could say, in Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo. Both offensive lines execute the zone block scheme pretty well. I'd say 49ers have a slight edge because they have better linemen. Both of these teams utilize their running backs very well. The Vikings probably have the edge when it comes to the wide receiver position. The 49ers definitely have an edge when it comes to tight end, even though Kyle Rudolph has been heating up lately. And then you look at the defense, both of these teams have great defensive lines. I'd give the 49ers a slight edge with D Ford coming back. I think both linebacking cores are awesome. I'd give Minnesota the edge because of experience. I think both secondaries are kind of on par with each other, with Harrison Smith being the ultimate decisive piece, I guess you could say. So really, when you break down the matchups and the position groups, they're both pretty much the same, very similar, but I am going to give the edge to the San Francisco 49ers in this matchup. I'm going to have the 49ers beating the Minnesota Vikings 26-24. I think it's going to be a very close matchup. I think the 49ers are getting healthy at the right time again. They'll be getting Quan Alexander back in the starting lineup, first time since week 8 or week 7 that we've seen him. And then D Ford is officially coming back into the lineup. So this team, not only are they very good, of course, with the 13-3 record, but they're actually starting to get healthy at the right time. And I think that does benefit the home team here in San Francisco. I think Minnesota is going to play a really good game, though. I expect to see a ton of different things on defense. I expect Minnesota to stick to what works, and that is the run game. I think if you're San Francisco, you kind of want to force the Vikings to pass so your pass rushers can get home as quick as possible, but I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be tough, and I think the 49ers barely pull it out, like I said. Now we move on to the Saturday night game. We have the 6-seeded Tennessee Titans, who did upset, I guess you could say, or defeated the New England Patriots. They'll be taking on the 1-seeded and the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, Baltimore Ravens, who are 14-2, coming off of 12 straight victories. I think Tennessee matches up to Baltimore better than any other AFC team except for Kansas City. If you look at all the teams that made it to the postseason in the AFC, Baltimore's beaten them all except Kansas City, and they haven't faced Tennessee. So really, they beat Buffalo, New England, and Houston. Handled Houston pretty well, convincingly beat the Patriots, and outlasted Buffalo. So when you look here at the Titans matchup, I think you're looking at two teams that want to run the football. I mean, Tennessee with Derrick Henry, Baltimore with that option offense with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson. But I think Baltimore eventually just kind of opens up the game a little bit more, and I think they'll end up winning. I have the Ravens winning 34-20, and I know that seems a little odd in a playoff game, almost a blowout. But I think it'll be close for a while, and I think Baltimore just eventually opens it up a bit. I think Tennessee is going to fall into the trap of being too dependent on Derrick Henry, and I think that's what's going to lead to them losing eventually. I mean, it's very interesting, of course, with Ryan Tannehill and kind of how he's played this year. Obviously, he can make the plays, but this defense blitzes more than 50% of the time, which means occasionally you'll see some first down blitzes here or there, but this Ravens defense is very talented, and if they start to feel themselves and they start to get into a groove, they're going to start playing with confidence again, and man, watch out. And these two teams will probably try to play keep away. And whose defense do I trust more? Baltimore's. Their secondary is much better than Tennessee's, but granted, Tennessee has a lot of injuries in the secondary, including Malcolm Butler, of course. And I don't know. I just trust Baltimore more in this game. I don't want to overthink it. Of course, Lamar Jackson in his last playoff game, his very first one of his career, obviously was not a good one. I think he'll have something to prove in this one. Texans at Chiefs. Houston comes in as the 4 seed after defeating the Buffalo Bills in overtime at home. And then the 12-4 Kansas City Chiefs, they are the 2 seed. And wow, this is an interesting matchup because this is the only matchup that actually happened in the regular season. And Houston ended up beating Kansas City, I think like 19-13 or something like that. Deshaun Watson had one of the best fourth quarters probably of any quarterback, I'd say. He went like 14 of 15, had passing, had 2 total touchdowns. He had a perfect passer rating. Like, he had a hell of a game. It wasn't the best performance, I would say, but definitely the best fourth quarter for a quarterback this year. A guy who had to come back by more than 10 points. So Watson definitely did his thing in the last matchup. I think Patrick Mahomes was playing hurt and Tyreek Hill wasn't available, but we're not going to make that excuse this time around. And I think Will Fuller will be able to play in this game, which is good. And I say this every time Will Fuller is out there. He is the X factor for Houston. He opens up the passing game a lot. It gives a vertical presence to Houston's passing game that not a whole lot of teams have, to be honest. But looking at Kansas City, their defense over the last 6 weeks has played much better football than what we had seen throughout the year, but Juan Thornhill is going to be out for the playoffs. It sucks. He's a really talented rookie safety who unfortunately will not be playing, like I said. So it'll be Tyrann Mathieu and whoever else wants to step up. And this Chiefs pass rush has been getting it going lately. Definitely, like, since the defense has improved, it's been mainly because of the pass rush. And we saw how Houston dealt with Buffalo's pass rush. They didn't deal with it, not too well. I think the Texans gave up like 7 sacks or something. The Chiefs, with slightly better personnel, you look at Chris Jones, Frank Clark. You can rotate like Emmanuel Ogbah in there and a few other guys. Like, it's going to be tough for Deshaun Watson and company. I think I'm going to give Kansas City the edge right here. In this matchup, I think I'm going to favor Kansas City 31-24. I could see it being a 1-score game. I just think Kansas City, the difference maker is it's going to be the run game. I think Damian Williams is going to have a good game, build off of what he did in Week 17. And then, of course, LaShawn McCoy, the ultimate X factor for this team. He's kind of been having in-season, quote-unquote, load management. Like, there's been games where he was like a healthy scratch. And that's because Andy Reid wanted to preserve him for the postseason. So we'll see what he gets to do in this game. Should be very interesting. I have Kansas City winning. And then finally, the Seattle Seahawks, who are the 5th seed after defeating the Philadelphia Eagles, taking on my 2-seeded Green Bay Packers. Now, I'm a Packer fan, it's no secret. I think that these two teams, man, they are the most disrespected teams in the postseason, it seems like. After Minnesota beat New Orleans, a lot of people actually could see them going to the Super Bowl, which I don't blame them. Like, it is kind of recency bias, but, you do have to get hot in the postseason, and Minnesota just might have found their hot streak, But you look at Seattle and Green Bay, they're actually very similar football teams. They have great quarterbacks. They win a bunch of ugly, close games. But I think it's interesting because Aaron Rodgers is better at home, but the Seahawks are better on the road. So it's like strength on strength for both of these teams. And both teams are getting offensive linemen back into the lineup. Like, I think Corey Linsley might have a chance to play, and I think Brian Bulaga cleared concussion protocol. He's going to be out there. And then for Seattle, of course, Dwayne Brown and Mike Iupati, it sounds like they're both going to be coming back, which is good for Seattle. It could probably help open up the run game. I do think the difference, though, is Green Bay is more healthy than Seattle at this point, and I do think Green Bay is a slightly better team than them, and they're at home. A lot of people have been doubting Green Bay though. Like, it's weird because they're 13-3, and people are like, "Oh, this is the worst team in the playoffs. It's the worst 13-3 team I've ever seen in my life." And okay, like maybe yeah, they don't blow people away statistically, but what's the one thing people always had to say about Green Bay is, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers has all these numbers, but they can't win. You know, they can't win." And now Aaron Rodgers doesn't have those numbers, and we're winning, and he's declined, and the team just isn't convincing. That's the narrative now. You know, like, whatever. Miss me with the bullshit. I get it, you know. I get it. I understand. Green Bay doesn't blow out everybody they play. They don't blow out all the bad teams or good teams. They win close games. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the mentality just to scrape out a win. Seattle does the same thing though. They have 10 wins in the regular season by 7 points or less. So Seattle basically does the same thing, but they don't get criticized nearly to the level of Green Bay. And last week I had to hear Saints fans all week say, or 2 weeks ago I had to hear him say, "Oh, you know, the Saints should have got a bye. Green Bay doesn't deserve a bye, blah, blah, blah." Only for New Orleans to lose to the same team that we've beaten twice, the Minnesota Vikings. So I don't understand it. I am going to pick Green Bay to win 27-23. Like I said, I think it's going to be close. I could see Green Bay going into halftime with a pretty good lead, and then Seattle kind of coming back and coming back and coming back, and I think eventually Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers put it away. And I think that's going to be the difference is the run game. I expect Seattle to have success because the Eagles are one of the better run defenses in football. It's no secret. I do expect Seattle to have a little bit more success, but man, I bet they wish they had Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. You know what I mean? Like, Marshawn, he could probably get a couple of good runs in this game. I'm not going to deny it, but you'd much rather have a healthy Chris Carson and a healthy Rashad Penny, because I think if both of those guys were healthy, I think Seattle might have the edge, to tell you the truth. But because they're not, and this is where we're at, I got to give Green Bay to win. I think Aaron Jones is the difference maker. And he's another player that seems to be getting disrespected as well. He didn't make a Pro Bowl. He didn't make All-Pro. Freaking Christian McCaffrey made the All-NFL first team or All-Pro twice as a flex and a running back. Like, Aaron Jones couldn't have got flex or running back 2 with Dalvin Cook. Like, what the hell? Like, I don't get it. And Zadarius Smith, too. He didn't make All-Pro, and he didn't make the Pro Bowl. I mean, I hope both of those guys have a big game. I'll take Green Bay to win. I don't want to ramble on too much, but let's just go ahead and recap. Again, like a dumbass, I have all the home teams winning. So I have the 49ers, Ravens, Chiefs, Packers. So the 49ers versus Packers is the matchup I'm predicting, and then Baltimore, Kansas City. I do actually think those are the matchups that'll happen, but, you know, it's the NFL playoffs. I can't go 4-0. There's just no way. So the 49ers were my closest, like, matchup. So who knows? Maybe Minnesota pulls it out. I don't know. It should be interesting, but hopefully you guys enjoy. And good luck to your teams if they're playing this weekend. If your team isn't playing this weekend, keep all opinions to yourself because you don't play again until August. Peace out.